you've got these 4 sons. They come from Ham. And one of the first great tyrants named Nimrod is mentioned here. And I'll probably talk more about this next week when we get to the next chapter, talk about Nimrod. But his name means we shall rebel. He's the first. He's called a mighty man before the Lord. And it's not a good phrase. He's seen as a tyrant, an empire builder, somebody that wants to rule over and dominate, which these empires that he builds, Babel and Assyria, come to play very much in Israel's history on down the line. They're the ones that take them into captivity. And the Assyrians in particular were very, very brutal, very, very brutal in battle. They'd make a mountain of heads. They'd conquer a city. If the city would surrender to them, they'd say, fine, all good, if you agree to our terms, which would often be very difficult. But if you don't agree, they'd make a mountain of heads. They would put a hook in their nose and they would drag them away. Now, the gospel, one of the earliest people groups, by the way, that the gospel really had a very powerful effect on is the Armenians and the Assyrians. And to this day, Assyrians there's quite a few Assyrian communities, especially in like California. Wonderful people. Wonderful people. So I'm not picking on anybody here. We could pick on everybody or we could pick on nobody. I'm not trying to pick on anybody. But the ancient Assyrians were fearful. I mean, they were to be feared. I mean, they were terrifying. Their terrorism was their number one tactic. They brought people into compliance through the horrible things that they would threaten to do to them. And Nimrod is kind of your first. He, like Cain in his rebellion, what does he do? He builds a city. Nimrod is a rebel who builds empires. He goes and he starts empires. He wants to rule the world. And he does so in disobedience to the call of God to be fruitful and multiply and spread out. Instead, he wants to consolidate and centralize. And I think this is mentioned. He's the first of this sort in history. But we see this very much with us to this day. I think you have to always have your ears open. I don't trust that World Health Organization any further than I can throw them. There's all these different organizations out there, even the UN. Anytime these do-gooders, they want to rule the rest of us. They look us as a bunch of morons that can't self-govern, and so they want to control the rest of us.